Hey everyone, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go for a 4-mile recovery run today, just my first run after the Brooklyn half marathon that I ran. So it's a little bit rainy outside, just gonna leave the camera behind, wanna focus on giving you my full review of the Hoka Carbon X2. So we'll get outside, go for my run, not gonna bring my camera. Let's just jump right to the Hoka Carbon X2 review. A little bit wet today. Let's get inside. All right, everyone, so we've got 50 miles in the Hoka Carbon X2. Hasn't been the greatest experience. If you haven't seen the initial review that I posted, you should check it out now. Was a little bit harsh on my first impressions, but we'll talk in more detail now that I have a lot more running done in this shoe at this point. We'll skip some of the other fine details and technical stuff just because I talked about it more in that video, and let's just jump into what I think and what I use this shoe for. The key workouts that I finished in the Carbon X2 were an 11-mile long run at a relatively easy pace with just a little bit of a pickup at the end, a tempo run, which was out on the road for about 40 minutes, the Brooklyn half marathon itself to actually put it to the test in a race. Didn't go all out, but was still a nice hard effort over the full 13.1 mile course. And then finally also just took it on some easy runs as I was putting mileage in the shoe and just getting a sense for how it performed and how it felt under my foot. So let me start with some of the positives that I've found out about this shoe over the time that I've been testing it first. The first thing is it's a nice stable platform. If you had any issues in the past with, say, like a Nike Vaporfly or Alphafly, even shoes like the Saucony Endorphin Speed, sometimes people complain that they feel like they're missing some support on that medial inside under your foot. And that kind of feels like you are a little bit unstable, like your foot wants to collapse inward when you're running. So if you have any issues with the way that some of those other super shoes feel with the stability of the actual outsole itself, this one definitely feels like you have a solid footing on the ground. It's very flat, as you can see. And the other nice thing about it, if you do need some of that stability, is that it is super stiff. I mean, for better or worse, this is one of the stiffest shoes I've ever felt. It doesn't bend at all from, just behind where your toe box is all the way to the back of the shoe is rock solid. I cannot even bend it just a little bit. So if you need something that's more stable, that's a positive about this shoe. It also has a comfortable enough upper. I don't know if you can see through it from here, but there's definitely some breathability and thought put into the upper as far as the toe box through the midfoot. The actual heel counter and collar around your ankle is pretty soft. It's plush enough, if not, more plush than most of the racing options out there. So if that's something you look for, again, that's a plus that you may find in this shoe. No pull tab, but this funny little Achilles flare is comfortable. It doesn't rub anywhere, and it does help you get your foot into the shoe without the pull tab. And the heel counter is also pretty substantial, a little bit hard in the back even. So if you need some of that real heel cup stability again in this shoe, then maybe that's a plus for this shoe for you. The shoe's also light enough to bring you up to tempo speeds, get into a little bit of that race pace. Not the lightest option out there by any means. In fact, I think it's one of the heavier ones for a true racing shoe, over 8 ounces in a men's size 9. So it's a plus and minus. It's light enough, but not quite there as far as some of the other competition that this shoe has. And it's also one of the better options, again, for someone who just may overpronate or something like that. this is a real good option. Now, I also didn't have any discomfort or anything like that on my longer run. I had mentioned in my first impressions that this was a rough one for me as a racer. There's a lot of other things I'll get to, but as far as a long run shoe, I did get to take it up to those 11 miles, did not experience any discomfort. Again, I was able to pick it up comfortably at the end. So at the slower paces for me, even if I'm in the shoe for a long period of time, it's comfortable enough. It has that rocker outsole shape just a little bit to kind of keep you moving through your stride. And, you know, I'll continue to use this for some long runs to get use out of it as we go into the future. Now we're going to start to lean into some of the negatives about this shoe, and it really all starts with the half marathon effort that I had this past weekend. Again, I wasn't doing an all-out race, but it was a harder long run for me. I was targeting, you know, just around 2 hours for the half marathon, and I held back on sharing how the shoe felt in the actual race video. So if you want to check out the race video, go ahead, but I left out most of my comments about the shoe for today. This shoe was really rough during the race, to be honest. It's not the lightest out there, but that wasn't the main concern that I had. What I felt is it was a very firm midsole, and it starts even just right under your foot. If you can kind of see when you start to push in here, I mean, for me, this thing, even just inside the shoe, feels rock solid. I'll show you some clips of me just kind of pushing into the part right under your foot and the insole here. You can see in shoes like the Saucony Endorphin Speed, there's a decent amount of squish to it. Even in this just random walking shoe for the treadmill that my wife purchased, there's some nice squish under your foot in that insole and down into the midsole. Whereas the Carbon X2, it just, I promise you, I'm pushing hard. It does not squish at all. And you really feel that rock hard feeling under your foot. Now, there's not a lot of energy benefit and, you know, return of energy similar to the Vaporfly or anything like that in this shoe. It's a much more basic EVA, so you really just feel like you're slapping the ground. You're not sinking any extra into the shoe to lose energy because they just keep it a little bit firmer, but you're also not getting any of that protection or preservative benefit from the softer foams that you'd see in some of the better racing shoes today. Now for me, that really started to become evident towards like miles 7, 8, 9. The fatigue of the race and the longer run starts to pick up in your legs, and you feel every single time that you hit the ground just that much more. It's that much more emphasized in this particular shoe in a kind of uncomfortable way, again, for racing over a longer distance. I think one of the things that a lot of people underestimate or undersell about shoes like the Vaporfly, the Asics Metaspeed Sky, New Balance RC Elite 2, is that, you know, the foam is soft and light enough while also still being responsive and propelling you back off the ground, right? You get that energy return even though you're squishing. But the benefit of that squish is that you're preserving your legs again later into the race so that you still have the energy to continue to push yourself hard towards the end of 13 miles or 26 miles if you're running a marathon. You don't get that benefit from this shoe. It really just starts to hurt and feel pretty rough on the road. So even if you're in good shape and you're doing well during the race, you're gonna start to feel that fatigue really set in, and you have to work much harder mentally and physically to keep going. Whereas again, the Vaporfly, in my experience, you get that protection from the road, so you're just a little bit more fresh towards the end of the race, and it makes it a little bit easier mentally, a little bit easier physically to keep pushing hard towards the latter half of a long race. That's a big thing that a lot of the other shoes offer when they're softer, and that's one of the things that this shoe really lacks, in my opinion, with, again, just being such a firm ride throughout the entire midsole and outsole. The outsole is essentially just a rubberized EVA, so it's pretty much just foam, although it is a little bit thicker. You can see that there really are some points where the wear is starting to set in, particularly where I land. You can see some of that pattern is starting to just wear right through, and also on the toe box and the toe off section up here, it's really starting to wear through. That's only going to last me probably another 150 miles or so before I think I'm really rubbing through significantly in the outsole. So it could utilize some rubber. Again, I think it just goes to show again how much farther ahead some of the foams that Nike, Adidas, Asics are using when they can keep their weight down and also include rubber on the outsole. I mean, you look at the outsole of an Alphafly, an AirPod in the Alphafly, there's so much going on and it's still a light shoe. This shoe tried to cut weight by removing rubber, and it's still up there when it comes to racing weight, and you lack any of that grip on a wet road, as well as any just resilience of the outsole itself. So all in all, for me, my overall conclusion about this shoe is it's not something that I would recommend racing in. It is a very specific group of people that I think may enjoy this shoe. It would be somebody who is, one, definitely used to a firmer ride and enjoys a firmer ride, and also somebody, again, who wants to feel very stable with that outsole on the ground, doesn't like the feeling of the Vaporfly where it kind of feels like that part under the arch of your foot is missing, I guess is the best way that I can put it, and I understand and do feel that when I stand in the shoe. But once I'm getting moving, and again, if you have enough of that ankle strength and leg strength, it really doesn't bother that many people. But if you do want that stable feel, and maybe you do use a more stable shoe on a daily trainer, this may be something that you can try, at least just slipping your foot into and see how it feels when it comes to a racing shoe. I will probably use it for long runs in the future just to continue to get use out of it, but it's just not something, again, that I would really recommend as anything that is a great racing option. It still comes in at $180 at retail price, and the sale price of $140 just doesn't do it for me. The Endorphin Pro one that I picked up was only $100, and that's a shoe that I would use over this one even just for fun racing on a regular basis. So this shoe really just falls behind, in my opinion, and lacks a lot of the technology that you'll see in the other great racing shoes that have just, become available over the last 3 to 5 years. This one, to me, is at the bottom of the barrel. Over the next couple days, I'll be shifting my mind to get ready for the Mount Beacon half marathon and trail race out here. My first experience really off of the roads racing. So we'll see how that goes. I definitely need some support and good wishes from all of you because I think it's going to be really brutal. I'm not someone who's used to vertical running. I was just complaining about the 150 feet elevation climb for the Brooklyn half marathon. So clearly I'm going to need a hand out there this weekend on the trails. But thanks everybody for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.